Authentic leadership, right? Authentic leaders build relationships with their employees and colleagues and try to establish real connections with the people around them. So you have IQ, you have EQ. IQ is, it tests the measures, right? Your ability to solve problems, more logic, more tangible information, whereas EQ, you are allowing yourself to be emotional. You're letting yourself be emotional. You're letting yourself be seen. And a lot of times there's a conflict. A lot of times people think that it's a sense of weakness to be vulnerable, to be emotional. And emotional meaning, we're not going to start crying and wearing all of our emotions on our sleeves, but at the same time, we're going back to what I said in the beginning, allowing yourself to get on the same level, to be able to share your voice and be able to hear others.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have one I would like to share. One of our students says authentic leaders, where'd it go? Are comfortable with being vulnerable, which includes treating others with compassion and being accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. I love that.
And then we have another one. It says, when it comes to feedback, leaders are vulnerable about negative feedback and can use this against their employees. There's a question, and then it says, how can we handle negative feedback?
I would take it as you would take positive feedback, right? I've learned over my course of the 20 plus years that I've learned the most from my negative feedback. I had a situation early on in my career where I came from New York. I came into a new environment here in Miami, very diverse, very much different, coming from a space of the known. Coming into a culture that was extremely mismanaged, and I had to take over an environment and a new team. And while I had been with the company for quite some time, my leader, who I respect very much, still is a mentor to me to this day, he sat me down, and that's when we had our first self-awareness conversation. Do you know what other people are thinking of you? Do you know what other people are saying about you? And this is going to make you a better leader. So feedback was raw. The feedback was, I came in, I was a very intense manager, being in a disproportionate, environment from, you're around your male colleagues. So I felt that I had to be maybe a little bit more extra than necessary. And that feedback was harsh, but that feedback, I lead with that all the time, and hopefully you can take away, but take the negative and make that your positive, because it will prove well over the course of your career for sure.
Absolutely. And then we have another one that says, in my mind, vulnerability allows authenticity because it is quite literally exposing you.
Absolutely. The coolest part of today is when people that I've pushed very, very hard early on in their career, and when I say pushed, put them in front of situations that they were uncomfortable with, whether they didn't know how to carry a tray or they didn't speak English when they came and started to work for me, and they were in the back of the house and now they're running their own restaurants as a general manager. Letting them be who they are, but guiding them along the way, right? Putting them in spaces that it's a win-win for both of you. And then coming back to you and saying, thank you for this. I know you were harsh on me at the beginning, but being firm and fair is, I feel, a very authentic way of being. And again, it goes back to how you find your voice as a leader. Whatever that is for you in the environment that you're in, the more you allow yourself to be seen, is gonna prove well. So these questions are fantastic.
Great. And then we say, it says, as per my experience so far, vulnerability also gives opportunity to improvise on your service skills and helps in knowing exactly what you have to avoid next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for all those.
I have one more.
Of course, yeah.
I think when I hear about vulnerability, I feel that everyone that is around you is fighting with themselves deep deep inside, to put all of our problems and negative things out in our job or industry of hospitality.
Cool. I love that.
I believe that showing vulnerability, some people might think that you show weakness, but actually you're showing openness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. As I've been saying, that's the key. That's the key right there. It allows.
And then one last one, it says, it allows you to do things that people wouldn't expect. And in turn, you get to explore more of your potential and become your best self.
100%.
Okay. All right, that's it so far. Go ahead.
So yeah, so to button up a lot of the things that we were saying just now, I really appreciate all of you for stretching yourselves and thinking about it. You know, the self-awareness and understanding your behaviors, and we all again come from a different place, a different background, different culture, different way of speaking to each other. But your behaviors impact your organizational outcomes. For sure. Effective communication, goals, and inspiring trust. I've found being authentic, being different, not like my colleague, it inspires, it builds that trust. And agile, making sure, I think somebody mentioned that earlier, it gives you an opportunity to change course when you feel that maybe the industry, or maybe your space that you're in is stagnant and you're not moving forward. Stretch yourself and pivot. Know when you need to pivot in the environment that you're in, with the culture that you're in. If you're coming into an environment that that is positive, that turns negative because of maybe there's people that you need to ask to leave. That's an uncomfortable part of leadership, right? Where you know that there's people in your environment that may or may not be the best. Maybe they're the best at what they do, but they're not the best for the culture. Again, it goes back to values. What's important to you? What's important to your team? And making those tough decisions. Again, vulnerability, empathy, integrity, and adaptability, it buttons all that up, right? So with empathy, it's the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. I often find that judgment in my world, I don't welcome it. I think that it causes a place of toxicity, at the end of the day, how does it feel? How does it feel to be in somebody else's shoes? And that's gonna, when you're coaching and listening and hearing somebody's story. Everybody's different. So what is it like to walk in somebody else's shoes? Just really keep that in mind when we're sitting down and speaking with others. The best leaders are not perfect by any means. The best leaders are authentic and human. Empathy in this messy world is everything. Next slide. Thank you. So yeah, the empathy, right, is the most important leadership skills according to some research. I read this on LinkedIn, and I really had some powerful takeaways as to what empathy does for an operation and for leadership. It provides innovation, engagement, retention, inclusiveness, and work life, right? So innovation, when people reported their leaders were empathetic, they were more likely to report that they were able to be innovative, and 61% of those employees compared to 13% of employees were less empathetic. 76% of people who experienced empathy with their leaders reported they were engaged compared to 32%. Retention. How many people have worked for a company that they didn't invest in their career, or didn't invest in where they were in their space and their personal professional life? I always say, it's a cliche sometimes, but I always say that people leave people, and it really is true. Not the environment necessarily. It's who wasn't invested in me was generally the reason why I moved on, and that person on the other end, on the receiving end, didn't have the same values as me. So I feel like white, if they said 57% of white women and 60% of women of color said that they were unlikely to think of leaving their companies when they felt their circumstances were respected and valued. However, they didn't feel the level of value of respect of their life circumstances. White women and women of color respectively said that they were unlikely to consider leaving. And I think this is just a bucket of in general, of if you are well taken care of, if you are well respected, if somebody is invested in you, you are, I believe, you're going to be more likely to stay. Inclusiveness and a sense of belonging, that your voice matters, and that your being there matters, and that they realize that you have your purpose and that you are going to make an impact. And then, of course, work-life balance, right? We all work very long hours in our industry, and we want to make sure that there is that level of balance.